So you go home on 15 days leave?
Right.
What's different now? You're a Marine. What's that like?
Well, you're a little bit. I guess your ego is a little puffed up a
It
little.
is, isn't it? I can relate. I couldn't even fit through that door when I graduated.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Look at me. I'm.
Right.
But
So 15 days are up.
no, very quickly.
Almost as soon as you get there.
Yep.
Yeah. What happened next?
Back to Camp Lejeune.
Camp Lejeune. What was that Camp
Main
Lejeune?
side. That's I reported to the Foxtrot Company, 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines.
All right. So the main side, so the side now that you're
That's
allowed.
where the real Marines are
Yeah.
at.
And people elaborate on this. They don't understand that when you're in the training battalion or whatever, you don't get to see the rest of the post. Most of the time, you
No.
don't. Most of the time,
No,
you don't. When
you
I was
don't.
at Fort Benning, I never knew how big Fort Benning was because I was way out there on Sand Hill. No clue.
No clue. That's
No
right.
clue at all. Till I went back years later, as a full-fledged, member of the Army, just like, wow, this post is really big. But
Yeah.
it's probably the same way in
It was,
Marine. Yeah, you
exactly.
don't see the rest of the.
Exactly.
'Cause
Your world consists of that training area there and those cattle cars
Right.
that took you from one place to the other.
Right. So you're with the 2-6?
Yeah,
Right.
2-6.
What was that? What was your first day of your unit like?
The Marine Corps goes through training cycles, probably something similar to whatever Army units, infantry units do,
Right.
And we were in between what they call lockdown.
Okay.
When they go into that lockdown phase, you're in full-fledged training, and you usually wind up going to on a med cruise or to Vieques, Puerto Rico, someplace like that training. But when we arrived there, we were between training cycles. We were replacement people coming in. They were beginning to fill up. So you get a lot of crappy details.
Because you were replacements.
Yeah, because you're replacements, and you get, you do a lot of work details, stuff that's while you're waiting on the rest of the rest of the deal to fill up. And I remember, I don't know how long we'd been there, but we had begun to get close to having a TO
Right.
company.
Okay.
And they wanted to shoot a training film. So they need some snuffies out there as cannon fodder, which is us. So we go out in the field and we do this training film where we run through all these things. Of course, we're just out of ITR.
Right.
So all this stuff's fresh for us. Some of the older guys who've been around a little bit, it griped them because they didn't want to have to do this stuff. But then we did your normal. You got certain people got assigned mess duty, 30 days.
Right.
Of course, the good thing about having somebody out of your platoon assigned to the mess hall, you always had stuff to eat. 'Cause
Oh,
they'd
yeah.
bring in stuff to the squad bay, when they got off their tour, they'd bring in, if you remember, I don't know, I'm assuming they still have it, but they had these milk machines,
Right.
and it had these milk in these big square boxes. They had chocolate milk and white milk. Well, these guys would bring in a box each, white milk and chocolate milk every night to our squad bay, because we had 2 guys on mess duty out of there. You did a lot of standing guard duty, different crap.
Busy work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your job? Now you're 0311, so you're infantry. But what was your rifleman? Was your
Rifleman.
Just a standard rifleman, right?
Standard rifle.
That's arguably that's where a lot of people start off at. Most of the time, that's where you start off at. But that's like the handy tool for everything. You want
Right.
guard duty, you want mess kit hall, you want any kind of detail. It's gonna go rifleman.
Yep.
Because everybody else has a bigger gun than you.
And it goes
basically.
down.
Yeah.
It rolls down the hill.
Like the worst job because a rifleman can be ammo bearer.
Right.
It can be assist. It can do all kinds of things.
Right.
So my first job was as a rifleman was a breacher, so cutting the Constantine wire. So
Yeah.
our life expectancy was less than a
Less,
second. Yeah.
right.
So
Well, you might be a rifleman. I learned this after later on when you got in actual combat situations. but
right.
You might be a rifleman this minute, and the next minute you're a machine gunner.
Yes. That quick.
That quick.
That
it
quick.
changes.
When did you find out you were going to Vietnam?
It was in '67, fall of '67.
So you've been at the unit for 2 years?
Well, I didn't stay there the whole
Okay.
time. I bounced around a little bit in different crappy jobs, but actually I volunteered to go to Westpac,
Okay.
which when you say Westpac back then that was Vietnam,
Right.
because the FMF Pacific, which was Westpac,
Mm-hmm.
supplied all of the infantrymen for that, and things were really, really beginning to
Heat up a little
heat
bit. huh?
up over there in '67. So
So in '65 you're with 2-6.
you're right.
Who'd you go? What was your next unit?
Well, I came back to Little Rock to the 6th Rifle Company.
Really?
Yeah, and spent some time there,
Mm-hmm.
which was easy. Well, you know a little bit about it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like being in Afghanistan or Iraq
Yeah.
when you're here with at Camp Robinson with these guys, you
Mhm.
know. So
Yeah, it's a little different mindset.
right.
Yeah.
But it was always there in the back of my mind. And two things, I knew sooner or later I was going to have to go.
Okay.
I mean, that was just a given at that time because the demand for manpower were there. And number two, guys that I went through boot camp with, guys that I trained with, guys that I was in 2-6 with,
Mm-hmm.
they were all going. And it was beginning to heat up, get pretty rough. And, and you felt like I don't know how it hit you, but the longer you didn't go, you felt like a slacker a little bit. You felt like your duty
Right.
was
You
to
wanted to get
go.
in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
And
That's-
so
Yeah.
I finally just said, I want orders. And I got them.
Yeah. Yeah. That you did. So
They didn't really argue with me.
probably had them already sitting there, didn't they? Yeah. So you volunteered for Westpac. Who did you fall under there?
Well, the first thing
Uh.
that I went to Camp Pendleton,
Okay.
what we called staging battalion,
All right.
where we were getting people in. You went through an accelerated training phase, where you learned a lot of the guys teaching this, these instructors at these different things. They were all Vietnam veterans.
Mm-hmm.
They'd just come back from over there, so they knew what you were going to encounter. They knew what to tell you, and teach you about different things. Well, you learned a lot about, which I know you guys were real familiar with. You call them IEDs, we call them booby traps.
Right.
But they were excellent. The Vietnamese I'm talking about, the Viet Cong,
Mhm.
booby trapping anything. So you learned about all these different types of booby traps, how to try to avoid, what to do on that. Plus, in the meantime, the government, in their infinite wisdom, had bought into this super secret new weapon called an M16.
Wow. Really?
Oh yeah, I got to staging battalion. We'd always trained with M14s or M1s,
Mm-hmm.
and then got to staging battalion, and they said we're going to get M16s, and we'd heard all these stories about how ferocious these things were. They issued these M16s, and your training cycle would be of probably 16 hours or better a day. And at the end of the day, they would take those up and lock them.
Really?
Locker, and if you were a platoon sergeant or even squad leader, you had to account for every weapon, like this thing was going to be, somebody was going to steal it and sell it to the Russians or something, I guess. I don't know, but
What was your first impressions of them?
I thought it was terrific.
Really?
Oh, I thought it was great, but there was a big difference. We were in an area where you had plenty of cleaning gear.
Mm-hmm.
These things were, you kept those things spotless in working order. You cleaned those things. When you got in off 16 hours, you cleaned them before they went back in the locker. And so they worked. I thought they were going to be terrific because they were lighter. You could carry more ammo. And they told all these stories about how these bullets tumbled and what kind of damage they do to somebody
Right.
when you hit them and all this kind of thing. This is what we were told. But when you get in that actual situations, when you got humidity running 100% and temperature 115 degrees and you're in the jungle, things can rust with you standing there watching it in your hand, things like that. It was a different ball game, but at the time I was impressed. I thought, this is great.
So you're going through your training cycle, about what, 20-hour days, 22-hour days, like you said,
Yeah, time you did all your thing.
with a brand new weapon. How are you feeling about going into Vietnam? You feeling a little nervous, a little positive?
A little nervous, but a little cocky.
You got the newest weapon out there and getting some.
We were Marines.
Right, Marines, right.
we a little cocky.
In my experience, that bravery sometimes tends to vanish with the first bullet or explosion, depending on what kind of bravery. If it's real
Exactly.
bravery. So that little bravo, that false sense of yeah, it kind of goes away real quick.
I remember they showed us this. You get a lot of. They call them training films. I call them propaganda.
Right.
Anyway, I remember one distinctly to this day. It showed these, I guess, soldiers. Of course, we were Marines, but it showed these guys in these Hueys skimming over the ground about high as this ceiling off those rice paddies, and they were kicking some butt.
Mm-hmm.
And you thought, man, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to be bad to the bone, So you see a lot of that stuff. Of course, like you said, that first firefight, it gets real.
Yeah. Then you get to really see who's
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Who's real and who's not.
But in the meantime, while we're still in staging, you get assigned to you. I knew I was going to 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines.
Okay.
You had orders. You got all your orders. You did all in staging. You also did all your getting your will signed and all the legalistic stuff. Who gets the at that time it's $10,000 if you got rubbed out, off the farm, and who got that and all that kind of stuff. Plus 9,000 shots that you had to take before you went over there, and I'm sure that's going to any foreign country.
Oh yeah, you get shots. Yeah, you get a lot of shots there. All at the same time. I don't think they're supposed to mix them all like that either. So
I don't either.
Yeah.
But they didn't. Those
didn't matter. Just
those Navy corpsmen didn't care,
yeah.
and they used those air gun type things back then. You better not move your arm.
Yep.
If you did. But and you were doing that, like I said, you were training in actual what they tried to teach you, like what it was going to be like when you got to Vietnam to a certain extent, as much as they could.
What was it like that flight over? Training's done. Did you get any liberty, or did you
We
just?
got liberty. We got I think we got 2 weekends off.
Okay.
While I was in staging. We just went up to Los Angeles, and
Okay.
of course we went into Oceanside. That's another one of them holes.
Mm.
But you can understand why. That's where the main gate of Pendleton.
Oh,
so
yeah.
They deal with all these Marines all the time, so they got all these juke joints, and they'll throw you in the jail if you look cross-eyed or spit on the sidewalk. Type of deals, and I'm sure the Army's got some of those outside some of their posts too.
yeah, yeah, they do. Yeah, I think that's every post.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for the Air Force, they got them fine dining ones. Yeah, combat arms ones,
Right,
they ain't
yeah.
pretty outside the gate there.
No.
You arrived at you're heading to Vietnam. What's that like? What are you feeling right now? You're going over.
Like I said earlier, you're nervous, but you're
Right.
excited.
Did you fly or ship?
We flew. We flew from El Toro
Okay.
Marine Air Station, El Toro, California, to Hawaii,
Okay.
and from Hawaii we flew to Okinawa, and there we thought we were going to be joining the battalion, within a couple of days.
Right.
And there we got another one of the Marine Corps' famous things. You get thrown in there and they think you got to stay busy, like you said, stay busy jobs.
Yeah.
So while we're waiting to get out of there, they're assigning everybody jobs. And I had this had a real good friend that was he was from California, and he and I we were going to try to get in the same company. He was a sergeant. I was just a corporal at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to try to get in the same company. We'd already been signed our battalion, and we knew our battalion was on the battalion landing team, part of the 9th MAB, that's
Okay.
Marine Amphibious Brigade. So we knew we'd be on what they call a float. That's sort of like a reactionary force to help whoever gets in trouble. But we didn't know which company we'd be going to. They'd assign that when you get actual report in.
Mm-hmm.
And so he and I, we wanted to be in the same thing, same company together. And we had orders. We were going to Futima.
Okay.
That's the Marine Air Station there was at the time on Okinawa. We're going to fly out C-130s. We're out there in formation. They come out there and yanked about 10 of us, I think it was, out. I was one of the unlucky ones. They said, you're going to NTA, which is the Northern Training Area there on Okinawa.
Okay.
Said, you're going to be, they were training a bunch of, they had some recon Marines,
Mm-hmm.
Navy SEALs, and people like that. And so they needed an aggressor force for their counter-guerrilla warfare school.
Right.
So he went on down, and I went to NTA for about 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks, I guess. So we got separated there. Of course, I didn't even know which company he went to till I got reported into the battalion.
Okay. So what was it like reporting to, what was your next step from there?
Well, we flew from C-130
Right.
from Futima Air Base to good old Da Nang, Vietnam.
Mm.
Landed there, and it was like getting hit with stepping out into a blowtorch or a sauna.
Mm.
I mean, even though we've been places that was hot, this was on a different level. And then we went from there to the USS Iwo Jima,
Right.
which was our ship that our battalion headquarters was on,
Okay.
because we were a battalion landing team. And
So were you like a quick reaction force? They would just deploy you where they saw you?
Right.
Okay.
except when I got there, the company was off. They'd already was in country. They'd
Right.
already made a landing, supposedly for a 2 weeks operation,
Okay.
helping out somebody. I don't know which battalion. So we reported in and did our all the paperwork you got to do again when you join the actual battalion and all that. And then we probably were there about 2 nights, I guess. And then they put us on choppers when the company got to a place we could join them. And we choppered out to the end country, to the company
Okay.
at that time.
What were they in? Some type of fire base or?
Basically, sort of like that.
Right.
They were in the actual, at the time when I joined them, the battalion was all there. All 4 companies was in a fire base type area.
Right.
Basically. And, but they, as I learned very quickly, they didn't stay that way very long. When you were a battalion landing team, you didn't really have a home.
Okay.
We called it a bastard outfit.
Right.
In fact, that's what they call us, magnificent bastards, because nobody claimed you until they got in trouble.
Then they needed you.
Then they wanted you, you know.
What was it like? You're green right up to this point.
Right.
Even you've been in for a minute, but you're green. Everybody understands when you get into country, your first tour, you're green.
Exactly.
You're green.
Very.
You know, if you've never seen combat, you're green when you get. And what was the reception like from your company, your fellow Marines? A bunch of you green guys getting off.
You get a little bit of I won't call it harassment, but you get a little. They jive with you a little bit about how much time they've got left, and how much time you've got left, type deal.
Try to test you a little bit there.
Right.
Right.
But learned real quick. I was very fortunate when we joined the company. They were seasoned. They were combat tested,
Right.
and it became very clear that you had a better chance because if you could stay alive for the first month or 6 weeks to learn the ropes yourself. So if you listened to what they said and did, you know, what they already knew, then it was help you make it to the point where you're more on your own, basically, know what you're doing a little bit. I mean, just like you said, we're green. We
Right.
didn't know. We'd had all this training, but we didn't know nothing. We didn't know what it was like. I'd never been shot at.
Right. Uniform wasn't faded yet.
No.
No, not at all.
You could always tell.
Yeah. That and the boots.
In the boots.
That's that and the boots.
Exactly right.
Right.
Exactly right.
So you're on the ground at this fire base type area.
Right.
It's hot, humid. The smells are, what are you smelling? You smelling the sweat, the dirt.
The sweat and the dirt and the rotten rice paddy areas. And
Right. It's just a real surreal moment that started back in 1965, right?
Right.
Right.
this is what but you knew in the back of your mind, this is what you trained for
Right.
all these years now. This is what you,
And a lot of people, like when you get to the game, there is those surreal moments. You're like, wow, I'm actually here.
yeah.
And then you're just kind of like, are you going to perform? How's that going to happen? And that's where that training kind of, you knew, like you said, you were trained,
Right.
but you're still green.
You're very green.
You're very green.
Right.
What was your first few nights there like?
A lot of mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
They have mosquitoes that make these Arkansas mosquitoes look like.
Yeah. Relentless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were. Learned what, going on LPs and whole watch. All of a sudden, your whole life had turned upside down, and it didn't take you long to learn that you couldn't afford to look down the road. You were looking at that night and the next day, And then, of course, the first time you get, the word comes in, you know, that somebody's having problems over here, Foxtrot Company or somebody, I forget who it was, had went on this search and destroy is what they
Right.
called them then, operation, and they bogged down, so they needed help. So they called us. Now this is when your heart rate gets up.
And this is your first time?
This first time
Okay.
you board, we actually we didn't board choppers that time. We actually, they took us out there on these Amtraks to a certain point, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because we're out toward we're in the rice paddy area out toward the South China Sea
Right.
some at this point, and they're trying to take this bill, and you help load your first bodies in a body bag, and you get your first rounds.
Get your nose bloodied a little bit.
Yep. And you get then you all of a sudden you know this is not
It's real.
like these training films that we've been watching. This is real.
What company were you with?
I was with Golf Company.
Golf company. Okay. So golf company. So your first experience with golf company going to bail out Foxtrot.
Right.
Right. Okay.
And late in the afternoon, we went in, and of course, they had, you know, they hadn't made a lot of progress, but they had some. And then when we went in there, it was just, we swept right through. But the thing that made me feel good at the time, everybody that had been there in that company said, "Oh man, you're lucky." Said, "We got Jay Vargas, Captain Vargas is our CO.
Right.
Vargas said he is good. Said if anybody can get you through this, it'll be Vargas." So he had the whole company's confidence. He was a natural leader.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't one of those guys that yelled and hollered and did all that, but he just had a way about him that, you know, he had the confidence of the entire company. Everybody felt as long as he was our company commander, we were okay, was the feeling, and which I learned to appreciate in the months that I was with him there.
So his leadership gave you guys a lot of confidence, inspired you basically.
It did.
And reassured you.
Reassured and inspired. That's a good word.
Right. When did it start heating up? How long were you in country when it started getting real hot?
Immediately.
As soon as you got there, it started.
This was February of 1968, and
Okay.
if you remember, the last few days of January of 1968 is when they kicked off the Tet Offensive of 1968.
So as soon as you get there, the Tet Offensive kicks off,
Right.
roughly.
Roughly. In fact, I can remember this as one of the things that I remember. I thought I'd been there probably 4 or 5 weeks, and we were making contact day and night.
Right.
And I thought, there's no way that a person can be 13 months and make 13 months like this. There's just no way, because it was constant.
And what kind of contact was it?
It was mostly NVA.
Like small arms, artillery, mortars?
A lot of mortars, a lot of
Okay.
artillery, and a lot of small arms on ambush. You know, they would ambush our patrols, and if they got a chance, if they catch a company out there they thought was vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
they weren't beyond attacking your perimeter at night.
Right.
Now you didn't really normally you didn't take a lot of firefights in the daytime.
Mm-hmm.
They normally broke it off when if you made it through to the daylight. Now they might hit and run if they or something like that, but they didn't usually stand and fight in the daytime. But
Right.
that changed later down the road.
You still a rifleman during this?
Well, actually, I got drafted to
Okay.
a few weeks after, I don't remember exactly when, but NCOs were sort of a premium.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the guys coming into the companies at this time were right out of ITR.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about privates and PFCs. So the section leader in weapons platoon, section leader, one of them had got medevaced out,
Okay.
and they wanted somebody for Vargas said, for, temporarily for a few days, I'm going to put you here in charge, corporal, in charge of this section, which consisted of, at that time, 60 mortars and 3.5 rockets. And he would put me in a rifle platoon later,
Right.
which I guess was sort of a blessing in disguise. It puts more responsibility on you, but it still, you wasn't, you were more directly under or the command of the company commander, because you're basically his field artillery when he can't get
Right.
artillery or 81s or something like that in support. So that's had a gunnery sergeant. His name was Del Rio. He's from California, and he was actually the one that told the skipper. He said, "Well, why don't we use him here, and we get him in we get somebody in here or back from the, that had been medevaced out, then we'll move him over to a rifle platoon. But in the meantime, put you there in charge," which I was not. I was an 0311, which
Really?
is a rifleman
Mm-hmm.
MOS. Mortars was 0341.
Right.
Rockets were 0351s, and guns, which was part of weapons platoon, was 0331s. And so I didn't have a background, that you might say, in any of it other than your general training that you got had to be familiar
With all of it.
with everything.
Right. A lot of people don't know that the Marine Corps, if you are a machine gunner, that's a separate MOS.
Right.
If you are in the Army, if you're 11 Bravo, which is infantry, you cover all the machine guns and things like
Right.
that. And they used to have they have 11 Charlies, which is indirect fire, and that's a separate, a separate thing. They used to have different ones, but they all kind of combined it into one MOS now. But the Marine Corps still keeps
Right.
the 030, the
Well, they
033
did the
ones.
last-
Right.
last-
No, they still keep them there, and that's all you know is that machine gun, basically.
Right.
Right.
But a rifleman, like you said a while ago, a rifleman better have some basic
Absolutely.
knowledge of
Absolutely.
everything, because you may be a rifleman now and then you're a gunner.
Right. Because if he goes down, you gotta get that gun up.
That's it.
That's the
That's
rule.
the
That's the
main-
card. That's like the cardinal rule.
That M60 machine gun, in our case the M60,
Right.
was our most valuable infantry weapon
Right.
that we had.
Well, that's your backbone of your platoon. That
Right.
keeps you alive.
Plus, as I learned the hard way, those M16s that I was so enchanted with in California was a piece of garbage in Vietnam,
Right.
as it turns out.
What was your most, I want to say memorable, what's the one instance that stands out with you? You're there during a very hot time.
I remember, of course, I remember that first action,
Right. Everybody remembers their first one.
your first action. And I remember those first body bags.
Mm-hmm.
Then I remember on March 18th,
Okay.
we again, we were since we were the battalion landing team, we were the reactionary force. And I don't even know who it was, Bravo 1-3 or who was having trouble.
Okay.
And they sent us in to help them March 18th. And it turned out to be a really ferocious firefight that lasted. We got called out about, I don't know, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
Here was the bad part of being on that reactionary force.
Mm-hmm.
They come in and they designated one platoon
Right.
as what they call Sparrowhawk.
Okay.
That platoon had 30 minutes to be either in a chopper, airborne, or on that Amtrak on the way. And the rest of them, no, they had, my bad, they had like 15 minutes.
Right.
The company had 30 minutes to follow the rest of the golf company. Had to be on the move within 30 minutes. So whichever platoon was designated Sparrowhawk, if you were going to be aboard, if they're going to chopper you in, you had to have all your gear on your back, everything, you're locked and loaded, everything ready to go, and you couldn't even go take a leak without you checked out with your platoon sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
You're just there. And then they come out and they pass the word. Of course, we all got radio operators, so you can hear what's going on, and you can hear this firefight going on. And they come out and they say, all right, saddle up, we're going in. So everybody, you know, I'm getting the guys that I've got, you know, you've got to get ready, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
You're psyching yourself out. I know you know what this is like.
Right.
In your mindset. And then you get there and the choppers start, you know, they fire those, we had those old C9s,
Mhm.
which is our version of the Chinook.
Right.
And fire them up, we're all ready to get on. You stand there and you think, what's going on, what's going on? And they're about 10 minutes. And then the birds shut down, they say, all right, stand down, we're not going. So you've already psyched yourself out, you're ready to go.
Mhm.
So you sit back down, you know, you crash back, everybody, and then in about 30 minutes or less, all right, saddle up, we're going in. This time we're going in. We do that 3 times.
Wow.
The third time was for real. Third time, but you went through this nerve-wracking yo-yo, and then when we get there, it really is crap. And they put us down, and of course, you know how a chopper is automatic.
Mm-hmm.
They know that the best thing they can do is shoot those birds down before they get there.
Right.
So you're an automatic target. They know that relief's coming, so they're going to throw everything they can at you as you come in. And we got there, swept through this bill, and they had these tunnels. That was my first experience with those goop tunnels. You know, they were little people, and they could tunnel.
Now, did you go in them?
I didn't think I was too big. That was one time
Yeah.
being larger was a blessing. They used the smaller men were the tunnel rats, but we overrun some of them, and then we took fire from behind us. So that's how I learned. You know, you learn one of the things you got to watch out for. That stands out. We took several wounded and some KIAs that afternoon. So that was my first really intense firefight. Now I'd been, you know, I wasn't exactly as green as I was because we'd been baptized by fire already.
Right.
Some, but this was a full-fledged, all-out deal for about 2-3 hours there before we cleared the village out. And of course, they could disappear when they had those tunnels like that. They could just melt back into nowhere, you know. They could break it off and be gone. Of course, those tunnel rats, those boys had to take a flashlight and a .45
Let's go in there.
and go in there. Glad I didn't have to do it, I'll be honest.
Tell me about your company commander getting to Medal of Honor.
This is TET 1968. Like I've said already, we were making a lot of contact along this time.
Right.
This is in April, late April. We're up the Lamswan River, up toward the DMZ. The battalion is split. We're out on our own golf company. These other companies are off doing I didn't know what at the time. I just knew where we were at.
Right.
And we were running patrols, and every patrol was making heavy contact, not just
Sporadic. They're
Right.
sustained fights.
at night. We were taking a lot of incoming
Mm-hmm.
out there by ourselves, and they call us on April 29th, I guess it was. They call our company commander, and they say, we're gonna send out helicopters and pick you up, and you gotta go. We're having a problem with this village over here outside of Dong Ha called Dido.
Dado. Okay.
So we're having Foxtrot, Bravo 1-3 went in. They didn't hardly get off the riverbank, and they hit a hornet's nest. They had fired, these gooks had fired at RPGs at these riverboats that went up the Quaviet
Mm-hmm.
River. That was an inlet from the South China Sea to Dong Ha. That was a main supply route for Dong Ha, which was the main supply point for the Northern I Corps,
Right.
which was mostly Marines, but some Army units. I think a Marical division was. I don't remember which Army units, but anyway, this was a main supply point. So when they shot those RPGs at those riverboats, they sent in one of those. First, they sent in a platoon. Check it out, because they thought it was just a few stray.
Just popping and running.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And they found out real quick it wasn't that, so they sent a company in, and when they did, it was like kicking a hornet's nest. They found it was bad.
What was in the village waiting on y'all?
In the Dido,
Mm-hmm.
as it turns out, it was an entire reinforced division of MBA.
And that instead of just some stragglers,
Right.
you're sitting on a division.
Right. But at the
Reinforced.
time, we're up here.
Right.
And so they send choppers in, and we taking so much incoming, they got about half the company out.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we can't come in anymore. It's taking too much incoming. So the rest of us had to hump out.
Okay.
So we thought, in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, if it gets dark, we'll get a little relief from all this incoming, because they don't like to give away their positions to those phantoms.
Mm-hmm.
When it gets dark, those muzzle blasts will tee them off. When it got dark, they didn't let up. It was like they had an FO in the rear of our column.
Really?
They wore us out till we pulled back to that area that had at one time been our battalion combat base or area there along the Lamswan River and the Quaviet. We pulled back there. We got there. We started at dark, or right before dark, trying to get out, and they cut off our chopper support, and so we had to hump out, and they were wearing us out with incoming all the way.
Right.
We get there about 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30, and they called all of the section leader, the platoon sergeants, all that up, and they said, you're going to draw new battle dressings, fresh ammunition, and we got to go to Dido. They're got their hands full there. So we do that. It's probably 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning before we get all that done. And at 0600, we're out there trying to get on these, we call them Mike boats, or landing craft Mike. They were sort of open like boat, had a tank,
Mm-hmm.
and they put a platoon. We had 2 tanks, and then we put the company on these others. We had about, I think they had maybe 3 of those boats. And we go down the river to Dido.
Right.
When we hit the beach there at Dido, it was obvious that this was not a normal Viet Cong outfit out there. This was a firefight. We're taking a lot of artillery. Foxtrot had already been shot up by small arms when they tried to move through. So we make our landing there, and there's a bank. The river's here, and then there's a higher bank here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're pinned down for a while there, right there at that bank, and then finally, the skipper said, "We got to move out. We got to move out." So we had to go up and over.
So you're on the bank of a river, and you had to basically expose yourself just to get up there.
Yeah, we couldn't. You can't just sit there.
Right, you can't, because they'll hone in on you.
That's right. So we start moving in the Ville, and we probably get 100 meters or so in there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very intense. And the first thing that tipped me off, I remember this distinctly. They used air support. They'd use like two. They'd fly in twos. A sortie would be two planes.
Right. Phantoms.
Phantoms.
Right.
Phantoms is what we loved, those Phantoms.
Yeah.
Well, that first sortie that I saw coming in, one of those Phantoms got shot down.
Wow.
He didn't go down here, but he got hit, and he ditched out at sea.
Mm-hmm.
He was probably off of one of the carriers out there. But so you knew right then that if they were going to shoot at one of those Phantoms like that they were the real deal. This was not going to be Jody out here, This is not going to be Charlie out there with shoot at you a few times and haul it away. These guys meant business. This was April 30th.
Right.
We seesawed back and forth. We set in that night. We took a lot of probing
Mm-hmm.
that night. We were probably 100 meters, maybe a little further in from the river. And so we made a push the next morning, and they would counterattack.
Right.
And we would have to pull back a little, to a place that we had more holes dug, to a better position to defend. And Foxtrot Golf Company and then Hotel had been, I don't know where, anyway, they come in, they got in the fight, and then on May 1st, we began to gain some ground.
Okay.
With three companies there, out of the battalion, we start making some headway. And
How many men did you have total in your battalion on the ground?
the
Estimate.
maximum we had was about 650.
Okay.
That's, you didn't get, when you were a battalion landing team on the BLT, you were the last people to get resupplied on anything, which included replacements. So we were never TO.
Right.
We should have had 200 men to the rifle company, and plus all the H&S and the 81 mortar section and all that, and should have had 1,000 men in a battalion.
Right.
But we had about 650 men.
So, off our last conversation, the BC battalion commander made the call based off some intel to pursue the enemy because he
Yes.
thought the NVA were pulling out.
Right. That was on May 2nd.
May 2nd.
May 2nd. Now we've been there two days in heavy fight.
Heavy contact, and y'all thought
We
they
got
were
it.
pulling.
We got in. We were inside a reasonable distance into the Ville,
Right.
and so the word had first came. The battalion commander called up the company commanders, and they went up there and they said, "We're going to pull back and reassemble the entire battalion because we were getting shot up pretty bad. I mean, manpower wise, our
Right.
numbers were dwindling. So he was going to reorganize the entire battalion. But then these AOs, these bird dogs, were up there, and they said, "You've got them on the run. We can see them pulling their dead and wounded out." This is late in the afternoon of
Right.
May 2nd, I guess, May 2nd. And so hastily, the battalion commander calls and says, "Okay, Golf Company and Foxtrot, I want you to get online and push through this Ville while we got them on the run. We're going to kick their ass while we got them going. And Arvins will be across the river to provide cover for your left flank across
Right.
this creek." I say river, there's a creek. So Vargas comes back. That's what we do. In fact, the battalion commander and battalion sergeant major and his entire command group moves with Golf Company. He's going up.
You get eyes on the battle.
Yep.
Yep.
He was
They're moving to lead
Weiss
element.
is a heads-up guy. I mean, he's not
Right.
not one of them guys that sits back and says, "Do this." He's there with it. Anyway, he said, I remember so well. They said, we'll take some sniper fire, some cover. They'll leave behind some people to cover their retreat here as they pull back. But it'll just be sniper fire.
So they basically baited you in with some sniper fire, right?
Yeah.
That's what you took. You took some harassing fire, but
Oh,
nothing.
we took exactly what they said. We were taking some harassment fire, but we expected that.
Nothing real significant.
We expected it would have been a normal tactic in them pulling back. We got in the Ville probably, I'm guessing maybe 100. It could have even been 200 meters. And they had these little lanes, I guess they call roads.
Right.
Each side of them had a hedgerow.
Right. So they funneled you.
Yeah, and we had Foxtrot on our right flank. They're out in the rice paddy area,
Okay.
and we're moving through the Ville part. The Arvins is across the creek, supposed to cover our left flank. We get in there about a couple hundred meters, and all hell breaks loose.
Buzzsaw.
I mean, like I'd never in my life imagined or seen anything. Made March 18th look like a picnic, and I thought that was bad. But we were pinned down, and then these Arvins that's across the creek disappear. And the next thing we know, we're getting shot at from across.
So they abandoned your flank. You're getting
Right.
attacked.
And then the NVA moves in across this creek, so they're on our left flank.
Right.
Foxtrot they got cut to pieces in that open rice paddy area, so we know they can't hold full back. So we got Golf Company out here on a peninsula.
Just getting
The
carved.
only thing that's between everything and these NVA is us. And I remember I was close enough to the RDFO was laying in this little shallow-like trench line that we taken cover in the same area, and I could hear the skipper and he called it the thing that really saved us. I'm convinced to this day the skipper had him call in our artillery fire on us. It wasn't, I won't say it was directly on us, but it was danger close.
Pretty close.
It was past danger close.
Right.
I mean, it was, I always, when I think about it, I think about that story that old Jerry Clower tells about his cousin up there after that coon.
Shoot up in amongst us.
Just wanted us to have some relief.
So, before we go, because we're running short on time, the battle's over. What do you feel?
I feel blessed that I'm still alive. I feel shock.
Right.
I can't believe that some of the people are not here anymore.
Right.
I can't believe that I am here. That, like I have told you before, that was the one time in this whole thing, this whole tour that I was there, that I didn't think that I would make it. This was the end. And this is where Vargas, not only did he call in that artillery there and save our company, he pulled, physically and personally, pulled our battalion commander was wounded. Battalion Sergeant Major Big John Melner was killed that day, that afternoon. But he pulled the Colonel Weiss out physically, drug him out while he was still defending with his weapon, and had to expose himself under intense fire to save the battalion commander, and he was wounded 4 times.
Wow, that's remarkable.
Yeah.
Paul, I'm afraid we're out of time.
Oh, okay.
No, hey, that's
Long-winded.
amazing story. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I could spend another 6 hours.
And we will. We will absolutely do that.
But thanks for listening to my story.
It's an honor. It's a real honor.
It's some of this comes back to me as I'm talking about it, so I sort of jump around a little bit. But
I promise you we'll hear your full story. I'll give you all the time we got.
well, I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. All right, signing off. Sorry, we're running out of memory.